Well, that went incredibly fast. Friday was obviously the day when we got the pictures of, shall we say, Matt Hands-on Hancock doing the dirty with his, shall we say, aide. And again, questions should be asked definitely of how she came about this position, and of course the leverage that was, shall we say, then employed because someone again related to her got a PPE contract. Not surprising, like I say, this is the guy who gave out one to his former pub landlord. The other thing was after that, there were questions, and especially me on Saturday morning going, well, who leaked this? And I think that is still one of the biggest questions. Who leaked this? This was interdepartmental for the Government of Health, closed circuit security. This was CCTV in Matt Hancock's very own department. Who leaked it? We don't know. But almost certainly someone had been sitting on this for quite some time. The other embarrassing thing is that, again, Matt Hancock has been out and out very clearly in open corruption for handing out PPE contracts, as we just mentioned. Not only that, but for absolute incompetence during his actions during the coronavirus pandemic. So the fact that this is what caused him to leave, and remember, he left of his own volition. Boris Johnson said the stock, it's okay, I consider this matter closed. But again, Matt Hancock then went on himself. And again, if this was such a, quote, ethical government, as they often like to say, Matt Hancock would have gone a long, long time ago. But more into this Matt Hancock story in a bit. But before we jump into that, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people who support me, and we'll see yes, on with the show, as they say. No idea what happened there. Normal service has been restored. Anyway, this comes from The Guardian. The title is, Boris Johnson may pay a political price for not sacking Matt Hancock. Matt Hancock was always going to have to resign. After those already notorious pictures of him embracing a colleague on the taxpayers' time emerged on Friday morning, the question troubling senior Tories is, why didn't Boris Johnson sack him? Johnson has weathered several previous scandals by sending his spokesperson out to say the stock line of the Prime Minister considers this matter closed, including Priti Patel's alleged bullying and Robert Jerrick's revelation with the Tory supporting property developer. Yet, this time was always going to be different. Not only had Matt Hancock been pictured breaking the very rules that he had been urging the public to obey, but he was also the government's main communicator of the public health message. Next time he appeared at the podium in the 2.6 million Downing Street briefing room, he would have been peppered with questions about his own breach of lockdown guidance and about other murkier aspects, such as how and when Gina Carano had been brought into his department. And, worst of all for the government, the scandal combined the two messages the opposition parties have been trying to make stick for months: that this government is sleazy and that its principals think that the rules they are urging for the public to follow do not apply to them. Hancock's position was clearly untenable on Friday morning, yet Johnson chose to try and protect him. Keir Starmer's response to Matt Hancock's resignation was, Matt Hancock is right to resign, but Boris should have sacked him. This shows Labour now hopes to make the Prime Minister pay a political price for his failure to act more decisively. Even Johnson's defenders say the Prime Minister tends to shirk the confrontation and struggles to deliver difficult messages. The former Vote Leave director, Chris Montgomery, wrote in the Critic magazine about Johnson struggling to dismiss a member of the staff at The Spectator. Johnson wanted to remove someone, and Boris couldn't do this himself. His stratagems over the course of months tried including wondering aloud to his would-be victim. You'd have a private income, of course. No, Boris, the victim flatly replied, because I need the money. The victim found their desk was moved to the ever more remote corners of Doherty Street. Of Doherty Street. And eventually, Montgomery, as he recalled, Johnson brought some of his children into the office on that day and appointed for them to be the deliverers of the bad news, and then scarpered, leaving the colleague to deliver the bad news in a pub. Dominic Cummings even claimed in a cabinet meetings, as soon as things get a bit embarrassing, Johnson does the whole let's take it offline shtick before shouting forwards to victory and doing a thumbs up and then pegging it out of the room before anyone can disagree. Others who have worked with Johnson corroborate this fact that he recoils from dismissing his colleagues. Johnson's Chief of Staff, Dan Rosenfield, is widely thought in Westminster to have fallen out of favour. But one senior Tory said that if this was so, the Prime Minister was highly unlikely to tackle the issue head on. He won't sack Dan, he'll just sideline him. He never sacked Eddie Lister, Johnson's former Chief of Staff, and he never sacked Ben Gasoline for his former political secretary. He just listens to them less. Both men left of their own accord as the power dynamic in number 10 shifted in recent months, and Johnson has barely touched the makeup of his cabinet, aside from last February's reshuffle when Sajid Javid was pushed out, something Cummings now claims he tricked Johnson into doing. Another former colleague of Johnson's claimed that he is still smarting from being sacked by Michael Howard from the opposition bench in 2004 over claims about his private life, which Johnson had dismissed as an inverted pyramid of piffle. Perhaps in Hancock's case, Johnson also felt that it was unwise to be making a judgment about a colleague's personal conduct, given his well-known record on marital infidelity. And perhaps he too hoped Hancock could continue to act as a lightning rod for criticism of the government's handling of the pandemic. Yet, the danger for number 10 in this weekend's events is that Johnson's failure to sack Hancock revives the perception that the Prime Minister is as someone who turns a blind eye to his mates and the misdemeanours that have built up in the wake of Cummings' scandal, back when he and then his chief advisor were still friends. It also may underline a sense, and in contrast to his gung-ho public persona, the Prime Minister is indecisive, even a ditherer, a charge that he likes to chuck at Starmer across the House of Commons. One former cabinet minister who campaigned across a string of marginal constituencies in 2019 election said even in the Red Wall, seats the Tories triumphantly gained, voters don't love Boris, but they loathed Jeremy Corbyn and wanted a government that would enact Brexit. Even before this weekend, defeat in Chesham and Amersham suggested some traditional Tory voters may already have come to the same conclusion that they disapprove of the way Johnson is running the country. Campaigners said cronyism came up on the doorsteps continuously. And former Downing Street pollsters James Johnson pointed out on Twitter this weekend that last November and December, before the vaccine bounce, perceptions about Johnson in focus groups were indeed very, very poor. He was seen as weak, run by his advisors, and a complete mess. The one big thing, he said, could bring those perceptions back to the surface as the joy of the jab starts to fade is unclear whether failing to stick to the rule-breaking health secretary could be that very thing. And the extraordinary images that accompanied Hancock's humiliation seem to be very likely to help this stick in voters' minds. And I think this will damage Johnson in some way, shape or form, because we know several times Johnson is not a man of action that he claims to be. He wants to let others take the decisions so that he doesn't have to make them. And like I say, especially when we are in just coming through, again, a pandemic, and we need someone to actually make decisions, Boris Johnson was not the right person, clearly, in this scenario. Not only this, but going forward, to make decisions. This could be very, very bad for the country going forward. Very, very bad. And I do worry about the state at which we're going to go. Like I say, even with Sajid Javid coming in and replacing Matt Hancock as the new Minister for Health, you know, he just becomes the new lightning rod. So what? There's been a change of the guard. And like I said on the weekend, I think that a lot of people, especially when it comes to the inquiry that we're going to get over the pandemic, I think Matt Hancock's definitely trying to be made the scapegoat, while Javid, shall we say, is going to be made out to seem like he's the saviour and sorted out all of Hancock's messes. Now, that obviously relieves quite a large area, because I've said before, what if Hancock turns heel? And if Matt Hancock thinks that it is politically viable for him to do so, remember, Matt Hancock has said in previous comments, and other people that know him have said, that he wants the top job. And as usual, when we went back to the pre-Boris days and Theresa May was on the way out, you saw all the Conservatives trying to vie for that top spot. And of course, Boris eventually got it. But now again, with Javid back in the spotlight, it now becomes, if Boris goes, Rishi Sunak, Priti Patel, Sajid Javid, and Michael Gove. Those are the four who are in like the prime positions to be able to take the crown next. And of course, you've also got to throw into that potential Liz Truss, maybe as well. Matt Hancock might very well come back and try for it and try and undermine Boris, and he will very well have things on Michael Gove, Priti Patel, and even Rishi Sunak during that time. Who knows? Who knows what may happen? So, as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do remember to hit that like, share, and subscribe button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page, as well as one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, buy me a coffee. And as always, thank you very much for your watching. And of course, we'll see you all next time.